What's up, y'all? We are back with another edition of the DNVR Avalanche Podcast. I'm Justin Michael. We've got Eric Lacroix here. Rudo and AJ are off for the day, but we've got a fun show planned for you. Lots to dive into. We're talking Stanley Cup, Conn Smythe favorites. We'll have a little bit of fun, talk about what we would do if we had 24 hours with the Cup. I'll pick Eric's brain on some potential off-season acquisitions, how they might fit in with the Avs. So we've got a lot of good stuff to dive into. Did you have a good weekend, D?
I always do, my friend. I always do, and I hope you did. You know what I mean? Because I know it's been crazy for you the last few months, and it was good. No, it was good. It was quiet, and no hockey games, nothing to watch, to comment on, you know how it is. It's kind of weird that they stretch it out that much till Wednesday, but it is what it is, right? So you got to live without hockey for a few days.
Yeah, it's a weirdly slow time of year. As somebody who has to do the daily newsletter for DNVR, the topics are slim. There's only so many ways you can say the Rockies suck in a historical way, but it's testing me. It's making me more creative, I guess. I'm excited to get into this Stanley Cup with you. I know we talked about it for about a half hour on Friday, so it's not the first time we've talked about some of the elements of this matchup and what should be a pretty exciting rematch beginning Wednesday night. But I want to kind of start here before we get into the Conn Smythe stuff. You know, you said it. We're in this weird dead zone stretch where there's no action happening. Is there anything the NHL can do to, I don't know, eliminate some of these gaps, shrinking the season, just something like that to make it so we don't end up with these awkward breaks?
Yeah, and I know a lot of people talk about sometimes like bringing down the schedule to like 60 games, and that's never going to happen. You can't even have a conversation about that. Even though as an ex-player, I can tell you that it'd be so much easier if you went down to 60 games, or it's so hard on your body. It would obviously add to people's careers 100%. But the reality of it is, the NHL, unlike other leagues, and obviously it's gotten better with the TV deal and all that kind of stuff. But you rely on your gate revenue, and in order to have a gate revenue, then you need games. You know what I mean? And that's just the way it is. And it'd be hard to now you're selling those expansion teams and with those tags and which expensive, and it'd be hard for all of a sudden the league or to even agree to go down to, for example, 60 games, or even the PA to agree to go down to 60 games. And because at the end of the day, how do you make it work? How do you keep the salaries up when you're taking 20 some games, which is about a quarter of the season? You know what I mean? That's a lot. So
I mean, it's a quarter of the
I
season.
don't know how. Yeah, that's what I mean. The only way you can do it, and I know that they have intelligent people that work at the league, and strategically they always look into, um, you know, when and when's a good. Obviously, TV rules and weekends. Obviously that's why they're starting this Wednesday, and then building availability, and so that dictates a lot. I do believe that that you could start a little bit earlier. You know what I mean? Like it used to be back then a little bit. Training camps used to be a little bit earlier, and again, COVID threw everything out of whack. With those seasons being played like in the summer, whatever it was, right? Nothing made sense. But then you're playing. Can you guys hear me or no? No.
Yeah, I lost you for a second. We're good.
Okay, we're good. Well, you talk about Olympics, you talk about Four Nations, you're talking about World Cups. Those are even worse. Those in season tournaments, that are so tough on your body, so tough on teams, and owners pay players a certain amount of money, and uh, how do you make that work? You know what I mean? Because you let guys go, and that's always a sticking point, right? The Olympics and on the CBA talks, it's not because you don't want those guys to go. It's just that there's the risk of injury, and it happens every year. That the guys go, and somebody comes back, he's banged up, and then he's getting paid $10 million, but then he can't play for his team. And but also you want for the best of the game to grow the game. I get it. I get it. You know what I mean? That you want those competitions. So I don't know. Maybe you can just start a little bit earlier. And again, I'm going to speak like a true player right now. Maybe shrink training camp. It doesn't have to be so long. And nowadays it's so different because back even I caught the end of it a little bit. My start of my career was more like you got the training camp to get into shape. Where nowadays you take a week off and you're in shape, like you're an absolute machine by the time you get into training camp. So maybe bring that down. And I know that was a big source of great gate revenue back then too, like those preseason games. But nowadays, it's like honestly, those places are empty. You're losing money really when you're. Again, I'm not the best with numbers and everything, but you're probably not making a lot of money with those gates. You're probably making nothing. Um, so I don't know. Maybe cut down those games to maybe 3 exhibition games, and actually you would see the players with a little bit more intensity and the real but then that can shrink for a couple weeks right there, just by doing that.
Yeah.
So I do believe in things like that. And and then you don't have to be the schedule came out today. I think game 7 is about June 20th, and then the draft is right after. I mean, again, it's so hard and it's so crazy. As players, like I said, it's easy. You just go play the games, but still, late June is late. But for managers and all that kind of stuff, you go all the way. Next thing you know, you got the draft. I mean, it's 12 months, and it's absolute chaos for 12 months.
Yeah, I mean it's tough to squeeze it all in. I'm with you. Just from a revenue standpoint, I don't think it's very realistic to ever anticipate them
Nah.
trimming the games, especially by something substantial. There's just too much money at stake. It's not going to happen. You mentioned it. A couple of people have brought it up in the Toyota chat as well. Preseason is maybe just too long of a process. Maybe that's a way we could. I don't know. It just feels like the Cup should be ending around next week, around like the 9th, 10th, and the fact that we're going this far into June, like flirting
Yeah.
with the 4th of July. It just feels a little unnatural, a little awkward in terms of like the hockey calendar and what we associate with it. With that in mind, though, we're starting, I should say, an exciting series here with a lot of star power on both sides. A lot of people have an opportunity in this one to really kind of cement their status and their legacies in this league. There's a lot of interesting options as far as who could maybe take home that Conn Smythe. Connor McDavid, unsurprisingly, the heavy betting favorite at about minus 250 on those odds. Who would be the top guy other than McDavid? Because I mean, you look at this series, obviously he's a very easy choice. He might just go off and score like 100 goals. But if it were to be someone else, are you looking Bobrovsky? Are you looking more in that Florida front line? Where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, I can see, to your point, the McDavid part of it. Like, even in a losing cause, this guy could go, even if they lose, and I'm not saying that they're going to lose, but back to back losing causes Conn Smythe. That's how dominant this guy's been. And you just look at key moments in the series that they've been in, and it's funny because both teams were down 2-0 in the first round, and we're facing a game 3 that could have been devastating, for those teams, and they both kind of escaped it.
They've
You
had
know what
some
I mean? And I
resilience.
do
Yeah.
believe that makes you, yeah, and I believe that makes you a better team in the spring. You know what I mean? In those playoffs. Not the year before or 2 years before, like that exact moment makes you a better team because you lived it, you felt it, you were like, oh, Lord, this could be it, right? You know what I mean? And I think that Their players, and I'm going to say McDavid, Draisaitl, I think have made unbelievable plays at unbelievable time. Those are key plays. Uh, and I agree with AWOL there. Like, AWolf, I mean, I do believe this is going 7 games. I think you're gonna need more McDavid, Draisaitl magic. Besides those two obvious guys, on the Edmonton side of things, I'm gonna say something here that I can't believe 3 weeks ago I would have said, or I can't believe 6 months ago I would have said. Like Stuart Skinner, if he keeps going the same way, as you have to look at him. And I'm not saying he wins it. I'm just telling you that he gets votes, whether you like him or not. That's not. I've said it before. He's an enigma for me. Like I don't like him. He looks like a great dude. That's not the point. I'm saying it's not my style of goalie. I like Bob. That's my style of goalie. You know what I mean? Like I don't like the big guy, but uh, you know big goal like Hellebucks, and that doesn't mean they're not good. I'm purely on style, Um, so this is crazy to me that I'm even mentioning this, and I tip my hat even more so because he was so down and out, and the whole city and the whole Edmonton fan base wanted to eat him, and you know what I mean, and he was not good, and stepping away, and Calvin Picker, good old friend Calvin coming in there for 6 games, running the table for 6, and got away with a couple, kind of like what's his name there in 2022 there, Frankie. You know what I mean? Maybe not
Yeah.
at his best a couple times, but won games. You know what I mean? And again, Calvin is what he is, a great team guy. He's not a number one in the NHL. He'd be the first one to tell you, but gave time to Stuart Skinner to refocus, reset, and oh my God, forget about an athlete, just as a human being, to be doing this on the fly in a public space, right? Absolutely tip my hat to him. This is unbelievable. Like I said, whether you like him or not, he has done the job. And if he keeps doing the job, you have on the Edmonton side of things put his name in the hat, for that conversation because he has been that good. And he has overcome so much. And then on the Panthers side of things, like I said to you, for me, Bob is always has to be in consideration. You know, all their top guys, Barkov, Reinhart, Sam Bennett has to be in consideration. You know, because he's usually not the most guy that gets the most points, but he's close, or he's leading the goals right in the category on their team, or he's close to it. And this is a guy that obviously will produce at the right time. You talk about clutch moments, but he brings so many more intangibles to the game that you don't get to measure, that you don't get to see. Like the fear in the opponents, like eyes, and the forecheck, and again, what better time for him as a free agent? Are you kidding me? You get all eyeballs on you, watching you, and then someone's gonna, I hate to use the word overpay, you know what I mean, but someone's gonna overpay, for you, for what you bring. I'm talking about numbers wise, not intangibles wise, but someone's gonna overpay. And would I overpay? Absolutely. You know what I mean? Because he's gonna do it, and he's just not doing it because he's done it, he's won it, he's doing it again. So this is not like, oh, I'm going to sit on my riches and whatever it is on my bacon and not do anything because I've won. It's like, no, I've won. I want to win more, and I'm excited for it. And so again, yeah, put his name into consideration. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think you absolutely have to put him in the mix there. He's maybe not a stat sheet stuffer all regular season long, but like when the lights are bright, that dude's prolific in big moments. And that's what's going to be interesting to me about this series. I think there's a lot of guys who kind of turn it up a notch in this type of setting. The Brad Marchands of the world. If you're interested, you mentioned Stuart Skinner. I did just a quick Google search here, so it might vary depending on what books you're looking at. I would have grabbed, if I had my phone on me, I'd look at Bet365. But Marchand and Stuart Skinner are both at 60-1 odds to take home the Conn Smythe. So you might actually be able to cash a nice little payday if you were to bet on one of those two and they were to pull it out. Something to keep an eye on. We'll keep this conversation rolling. I still have a couple more questions for you on this, and then we'll get into some fun stuff. Let's take a quick break. Let's
Yep.
shout out our partners, and then we'll keep this party rolling. Whether on the road, at home, or somewhere in between, First Bank makes banking easy, convenient, and secure. Their mobile banking app allows you to check balances, pay friends, manage your money anytime, anywhere. Here's the best part. If you open a new First Bank checking account today, you could earn $300. You guys heard me right. All you got to do is open a checking account. Boom, easy way to earn up to $300. And First Bank, they're all about helping you stay on track. Their tools make it simple to stay in control of your finances without the hassle. No matter where life takes you, First Bank gives you the freedom to bank how and when it works best for you. So if you're ready for a better banking experience and the chance to earn a little extra, head to efirstbank.com/bonus. That's efirstbank.com/bonus to open your account. Bank how you want, when you want with First Bank. Certain restrictions and requirements to apply. Member FDIC. Do you guys need some flavor fast? If you do, order at raisincanes.com on the Canes mobile app, which is super convenient. Raisin Canes, where every chicken finger is hand battered and cooked to order. Every crinkle cut fry, that's a tongue twister, is perfectly salted. Every Texas toast is buttered to perfection. And of course, every bite isn't complete without that craveable cane sauce. You guys hungry yet? I know that I am. I'm based up north, so if you know the area, there's a Raisin Canes off College Avenue in Fort Collins. I'm a regular there. It's not a fun stretch to deal with in terms of the intersection, kind of a nightmare. But when the chicken fingers are as good as they are at Raisin Canes, you're going to do what it takes to get it done. Dive into Flavor Flav's faves. It's Canes O'Clock. Time to dig in. Raisin Canes chicken fingers. One love. All right. Nice. A lot of alliteration in there, really testing my enunciation skills. Let's keep this conversation rolling. We have talked about McDavid, some of these other guys in terms of Florida. Could you see this being a moment where somebody like Draisaitl really kind of, I don't know, like signifies? I know McDavid's the guy, and they're going to compare him to Gretzky and all that, but I mean, he might be the engine that could. Like, he might be the Terrell Davis to the Broncos, Super Bowls in the late 90s that makes it all possible. Elway's the man, but, if you don't have TD, you're not getting it done. And I don't think if the Oilers, if they don't have a big showing from Draisaitl, I just don't see how they get it done.
That's a great point by you because the way I look at it, and people might disagree, of course, but a lot of people will agree. Draisaitl is probably the MVP of the National Hockey League regular season this past season, right? He was arguably the best player in the league for the majority of the games that he was involved in. He is a horse. He's an animal. Um, I don't know if you saw the play like game against Toronto, game seven. Barkov does, right? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Was it yeah, Barkov against Orlov. He just kind of behind the net, just absolutely just shoves Orlov like he's a 12-pound, 3-year-old,
Ragdolled him.
whatever, 3-month-old baby. You know what I mean? Just like shoes them, like, and then you're like, whoa. And it's Barkov. That's, the combination of size and skill and which should be illegal because I used to say that about Miko all the time, and I still see that about Miko because you should be that skilled when you're that big. It doesn't make sense because your stick is so long and so big. You know what I mean? It's so different than any other sport, right? Because you're on steel and you're holding a stick and you're controlling the biscuit, right? So it's like there's so many components that all of a sudden, if you're that big, it should be illegal. That and Draisaitl is a monster. And he is so strong. And when he gets the puck, it's so like decisive. He knows what he's doing next. He's a few steps ahead, so his brain is there. And like I was saying, Barkov, it's the same thing, But Draisaitl has got more a better shot, and he's a little bit more involved in the offensive zone. Not that Barkov's the best. Again, he won it today, right? Selke, so he's the best two-way forward in the NHL. So, somewhere it gives a little bit. And I'm not saying that Leon's not. I'm saying that Leon can be so dominant with that shot from the bottom, from the corner there. Like it's absolutely disgusting to see, what this guy can do. And I'll tell you one thing, Draisaitl, if he wants to over and take a play and overtake a play in a moment in a game, he's your guy. I mean, like he's your guy, and this guy can just go there and maybe just dominate the whole series here, and McDavid, that's the beauty of those two because one's been hurt, the other one just keeps going. The other one's hurt, the other one keeps going. They don't depend on each other. They don't always play together. They play together, obviously, on power plays and sometimes in the same line. So they're not really they coexist in a sense, and it reminds me a lot of Sakic Forsberg. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Because you could ask 100 people, and you're like, "Who's the best player?" You know. And again, don't ask me because I can't give you an answer. But you know what I mean. And but back then, I bet you people would have 50 would have said Sakic, 50 would have said Forsberg in their prime, and they were so different. And those two are so different. But could they both dominate and overtake a series and just go and get the Conn Smythe? Absolutely. You know what I mean? And that's the beauty of those two players, Draisaitl and McDavid. And it was the same thing because they're not depending on one another. You know what I mean? And that's the argument people make with Mikko. Even though this is for a different story, I do believe Mikko can be independent, and I think he showed that in the past. But they're good together as well. Obviously, the numbers show that. But I do believe those two could never play a shift together. You know what I mean? But still dominate. Both of them, and that's why it reminds me so much of Joe and Peter in Avalanche 1.0. But I tell you, to be that big and that good, and I'll say this about Draisaitl, that backhand is the best backhand passer in the NHL. I mean, he made a play. Was it last game there? He picks up a puck. I'll tell you, this is where a guy like you that's younger, that started watching hockey, way past after I was born. We're not going into age here specifics, but I'll tell you, this is where I believe in the last 12 years or so, the game's changed the most is along the wall. We didn't play along the wall back then. And coaches would tell you, get out of there. You know what I mean? Get out of there. Get out of the wall. You know what I mean? And then the opposition would tell you, no, 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 bring him to the wall. You know what I mean? Where now the guys are so good, so skilled, with all the skills coaches, and they work at it. And you go to Avs practice, as you've been. You watch the guys work after practice, and it's just little things, and it's just like muscle memory. And how many times, they on the course of a season, they'll pick up thousands and thousands of pucks on the wall when it's not that easy. Puck comes around, it's spinning, and as soon as it hits your blade, there's a way to catch it, right? Because it's spinning. But Draisaitl on that game the other day, he makes that play. Then he backhand saucers it like against the wall behind the net, like a pool shot to McDavid. McDavid gives it to the Worm in front of the net. The Worm puts it in, and Corey Perry, and it's like, what? It looked like nothing, but that was so skilled and so unreal, and that's why I say guys are so much better than we were back then. And again, I wasn't a skill guy, but I'm talking about skill to skill. Guys are so much better along the wall at picking up pucks and making plays on the wall. It's ridiculous. And again, ice is not very good. It's not not a lot of space out there. You hear people talk all the time. There's no time and space. Well, there's still no time. Obviously, there's less time because guys are so much faster. But there's less space. So what the guys do, they figure it out that if you go along the wall, you could add space, to the game. And I do believe that's where a guy like Draisaitl, a guy like different than McDavid. McDavid, you just give him, I don't know, 3 inches at center ice, and he's, that's it. He's going to
He's
take like
gone.
freaking a zone. He's down. He's taking a zone to himself. But other guys like that, Reinhart's another guy off the wall, they're so good at creating stuff, from the wall. Mikko was another good one from the wall. You know what I mean? Like, for example, where McKinnon's
Wasn't
different.
that
You
an
know what I mean?
area Forsberg was pretty skilled? Like, I don't want to take us on a tangent, but while we're on
Yeah,
the comparison of the Sakic Forsberg
yeah,
days to what
yeah,
the Oilers doing, I mean, he was a guy who could squeeze through just absurd spaces, the ability to manipulate the
yeah,
puck on the backhand and stuff like that.
yeah, and that's a great point you bring in, because Peter is the best I've ever seen. Um, my dad used to always say that, he loved Peter. Of course, he loved Joe. That's not what I'm saying. But we're talking about this part of Peter's game. Compare that Yager in his prime. If Peter or Yager, they didn't want the opposition to touch the puck, like they weren't going to touch the puck. If he didn't want you to touch the puck, you weren't touching it. And Peter was so smart because his vision was so good, and then he had eyes behind his head that you can look through the glass and see who's on what side of you. I mean, there's so many things you can do. And Peter was such what do you call that? Like brute. Like he was a
Yeah.
brute. Like he was just like, and then he would just leave the puck there. And he was so good because Europeans are so good at soccer. They all grew up playing soccer, so he could use his feet to protect the puck and then reverse
Yeah, his
shoulder a
ability
guy,
to
even
keep
though the
you
guy,
off while he just has one hand on the stick was just absurd. Like even when I
it,
was young, like you
it
could
was,
just see he's doing things no
yeah.
one else does.
Exactly, and that's why it was again such a brute force, but and then just the ability to be so strong and pick up the puck and make a play again. Where what I was talking about earlier, which is a great question, what I'm saying is, I'm talking about rimming pucks off the wall. You know what I mean? Like where the puck would go there in the corner. Sure, Peter can do that, but then nobody else can. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
If I do, I go help him out. It's like, come help me, because I'm at a standstill. You know what I mean? Like so, it's like. But you know what I mean? Like, help me. You know what I mean? Like, come and get it. That's what Joe used to tell me. Like, stick your big butt in there and just pretend I'll come and get it. And I'd be like, okay, great, Austin. Thank
yeah.
you.
Just
You know what I
shield
mean?
him
I can
off.
do that for you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll shield it for you. So it was fun to play with guys, elite guys like that. But now what I was talking about earlier is rimming pucks and picking up the
there we go.
skill that
Okay,
it
I
takes
get
to
you.
pick a. You know what I mean? Like, but
Yeah,
that was a great point by you because that's where Peter was so different. That's where Peter created so much of his offense because it was like and sometimes too much because you were like, stop wasting your time with Darian Hatcher. Stop. He's got you where he wants you. You know what I mean? Because
yeah.
he wants you to lose your focus and then slash him and push him. And Peter was just like, no, I got it. I'm not losing my mind. No, you're losing your mind. I mean, you are losing. He's got you. You know what I mean? And he was so stubborn. You know what I mean? It was funny. And Hatcher was doing his job. And I'm using Hatcher because he was such a tough customer in the corners and such a warrior type player. But and Peter was the same, and that's why he loved engaging like that. You know what I mean? Joe was so different. Joe was different. Didn't like. I'm not saying Joe was scared. Joe was speed, quickness, a little bit more like McKinnon in a sense, right? And then he had
Yeah.
that lethal shot, and they would be able. But Draisaitl, McDavid, that is, I mean, that combo is absolutely beautiful to watch, and that's why we did our predictions the other day. I do believe I'm like I can't believe I'm going to pick the Edmonton Oilers to win, but again those two guys are against the most well built team of whatever you want to call it, the last dozen years, whatever it is. In my book, Bill Zito's did an unbelievable job in Florida. It's amazing. They're delivering and they're hungry for more. And I tell Rudo and AJ all the time, and I'll tell you, and maybe Tiff knows I'm going to tell you like what I'm going to say. I was in Florida in '96 when Huey Krupp scored that goal, and I flew in because it's my family. I'm playing for the Kings at the time. I took the red eye, and I'm absolutely tired because overnight flight, right? The red eye, and I'm there, and it's morning, and I'm like, oh my god! And then you've seen your family, and then you go to the game. Of course, it goes 3 overtimes, and you're like, are you serious? You know what I mean? Like I am absolutely just swiped dead, like eh. And then if they win, I'm like, I'm not going in that locker room, not a chance, But it's all families, and I'm playing for a different team. I don't want to go in there, and I'm old school like that. And all right, you know what? I don't remember who it was giving me crap. Oh, it's your family. You got to go in. All right. So I made a. All right. I'm gonna go in the training room and that's it. And I'm gonna sit in the corner and I'm sitting there and Patty was sitting there with one beer and Patty's on his third Stanley Cup and I've grown up, obviously with him in my house. So it's like it gives me something to talk with, you know what I mean? Instead of, and he's so calm and he's so happy to see all the guys being so pumped and, celebrating. And then he, I swear, what is it? 1 in the morning at the time? I don't remember. 2 in the morning. He's looking at me. He's like, well, okay, from the outside looking in. I'm like, what? He's like, he's asking me. Again, I'm playing for a different team. Well, how does this team repeat next year? How do we go about repeating? And I'm like sitting there, I'm like, buddy, you got issues. You know what I mean? Like, what is go celebrate. He's like, no, they're wired that way. They want more. They want more. And that's, what I think is going on with the Florida Panthers because they lived it. They failed. They won. Now they want more.
That's a great way to kind of put a bow on this segment. We're going to talk about what we would do if we had a chance to spend a day with the Stanley Cup. We're going to shout out a couple more partners, and then we'll get into the next period here, the DNVR Avalanche Podcast. We've all been there. You're one leg away from your parlay hitting, and some dingus of a relief pitcher gives up a walk-off bomb in the ninth. You've got it all set. You've hit 4 college football games. you're rolling, and the Pac-12 game after dark ends up killing you. You thought you had a perfect parlay. Turns out you didn't. You need the Hall of Fame app. You need access to better information. This is not your buddy's group chat full of hot takes. It's a full on analytics engine. The Hall of Fame app gives you access to advanced stats, historical data, all kinds of powerful tools to help you bet smarter. This app is built for the everyday sports fan. It's easy and intuitive to use. So even if you're not the brightest, like a fellow like me, you're going to be good. You're still going to be able to navigate it. You're going to be able to find all kinds of great info, whether it's baseball, college football, the NFL, the NHL, basketball. You pick your poison. They've got all kinds of great stuff on there. With a 4.9 rating in the App Store and over 6,000 five-star reviews, it's safe to say the Hall of Fame app has already helped a lot of people bet smarter. For a limited time only, our listeners not only get a 7-day free trial, but they get 50% off their first month when they use the code DNVR at checkout. Download the Hall of Fame app on iOS, or on Android, I should say. Visit hofbets.com, enter the code DNVR, and you are all set. I also would like to shout out our homies over at Mando. Mando, of course, a men's deodorant brand, hyper focused on keeping every aspect, and they mean every aspect. If you're a hockey player, Mando's a good option for you, because not only are you going to be able to be fresh and clean in your underarms, you're going to be covered everywhere else. You know, your stink zones, your balls, your butt, your grundle, your pits, etc. If it's an area that's stinky, Mando has an option for you. They've got great scents like bourbon, leather, Cloverwoods, Mount Fuji, and Pro Sport. Don't ruin everybody else's vibes with your smelly self. Their stuff actually works. I'm a big sweater myself, so I can give you a firsthand recommendation on these products. They've got all kinds of options. Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, plus 2 free products of your choice, like the mini body wash and deodorant wipes. Check out Mando. Make sure you use that code DNVR. Again, check out that starter pack. Great option for everybody out there. All right, let's get into the next period and let's have a little bit of fun here. I love this topic. Eric sent me the rundown this morning, and I thought, what a perfect way to kind of set the scene for the Stanley Cup, but also have a little bit of fun. We've still got another 48 hours after this until the game begins Wednesday night. So we've got plenty of time to give all the takes in the world, dive into the nuances of this matchup. Give you 10 million takes that'll probably be wrong in 2 weeks. But you had a great idea, and that was, what would you do if you had 24 hours to celebrate with the Stanley Cup? It's a great tradition, one of the more unique elements of hockey that I love. Gives everybody their kind of individual moment. Obviously, you get to pass around on the ice and stuff, but also, you get to bring it around your loved ones and do all kinds of weird stuff. I know you are going to get into some stories about your dad. We're going to give our own ideas. Real quick, though, I am curious, what is the weirdest story you've ever heard in terms of somebody and what they did with the Stanley Cup?
I mean, God, we had Mike last year from the Cup, right? One of the Cup keepers, Mike Bolt. But I think he's writing a book, or he wrote a book, or he's writing a book. But oh my God, those guys, if like they got all the stories, I mean, if they can keep it, to a certain level of privacy, you're talking about a bestseller book. I mean, and I'll tell you why. Uh, that trophy, I've never seen anything like it. It just brings a smile to people's faces. It just does, whether they're hockey fans or not. You see it; it's impressive. It's like wow. It's got panache. It's got oomph. You know what I mean? And it's like it's got a certain flair to it that everybody's on their toes, and it's like. And it's such a hard trophy to win. It's the toughest trophy to win of all sports. I don't care what people say. It is the toughest one, and that's a fact with numbers and all that kind of stuff. So, um, but I tell you, I mean, there's so many funny stories, and it's because it's well documented. Like, I think Ray had taken the cup, I think, when they won in '01, and, brought it to Boston, and they didn't know where the cup was. My old man was panicking. And where is the cup? It's on TV in Boston, and it hadn't gone yet in the Stanley Cup parade in Denver. And it's like, are you kidding me? You know what I mean? And it's like, it just makes you do stupid things, you know what I mean? Because you're so proud of it. And sometimes you don't think. It's like people will say they go to Vegas, they lose their mind, It was the same thing. I think you get the Stanley Cup, you lose your mind. And, obviously, I'm from Quebec, and poutine is a big thing in Quebec. And I always enjoy it when you look and talk to the guys, and they go to the best poutine spots, and they have the biggest poutine in the cup of the Stanley Cup, and what I mean, and they eat out of it, and you hear all the stories of kids, young having their young kids eat cereal out of it, and all of course the amount of booze that's been in there. And again, I've seen this thing in a few pools, over the years. We got to remember, my dad was an agent 25 years. So I've seen that thing in pools, and, and sometimes it's like, oh, my Lord, how's this thing still alive? It's been dented a few times, but, it kind of crazy what it does. But those are, I think it's more the joy of, to nitpick like one thing. It's like, I think it's the joy that it brings to the people and again, you make it, it takes a village, right? You never make it on your own. I'm talking about the NHL. And then, all of a sudden, it's a moment I think you get to share it with the people that helped you. You know what I mean? And I think that is so important. And that's why they get so emotional. And again, I'll jump right in it. Like, so my dad won 96 and 01. And both times I was playing in the NHL for a different team, so I did not make both parties. Again, I told you earlier, I'm that guy. I'm stubborn, I'm old school, and it's like, you know what, I didn't win it. It's none of my business, and, that's your party, and go knock yourself out. And I've never really been to, until I got out of it, until a few years ago, I did go to Landy's. Was it Landy or no? Brendan McNicholas, Stanley Cup party at here in Denver, and so I went to a few of the guys there. Eric Johnson was graceful enough to invite me to his, and but it's like back then, very stubborn, didn't want to go through it. In '96, my dad took, obviously a kid from Montreal, growing up, and he wins the Stanley Cup as an executive, and it was very important for him to go back to where we grew up, and so you had it at the house, and ultimately where we kind of last were as a family, because now, like I said, I was older and playing in the NHL, and so it was kind of a big party, and they were able to get back because his friend bought the house back then. So he was able to get back to that house. So, and they had a bunch of family members, and it's the whole shebang, right? And it's the opportunity for the little kids to be there, to take a picture with it, to have some food and cater some food, and that thing's in the background. It's kind of impressive, It's even though it's a crappy. I don't know, piece of chicken you're eating, it's still the best in the world because the Stanley Cup's right there, right? And then, so that's the approach he took in '96, and more family, more going back to his brothers and sisters and nephews, and all that kind of stuff, and it becomes to be a big deal, right? And nowadays with social media, it's even crazier, and everybody gets, like the keeper of the cup is around, and they keep up, the tabs on everything, and they show everything on social media, and it's awesome. And then in '01, it was a little different for him, and it's weird because there was a guy that my parents had a house in Vegas at that time too, and where they were spending a little bit of time there in the off season, and somebody had written to my dad, like, you get those fan mail at the rink and anywhere else around the world, and saying that, hey, his dream, their friend's dream would be to meet the Stanley Cup, to take a picture of the Stanley Cup. If the Avalanche ever win it, that'd be awesome, because their friend is, he was on his last leg with ALS, and all that kind of stuff. Beer hockey league guy, and lived in Vegas at the time. There was no team in Vegas, and it'd be awesome if they ever won, to be in touch. And it's weird because it stuck with my dad, and they kind of kept in touch with the guy's buddies, and I totally forgot his name, so I apologize for that. But not that they were friends, it's just through fan mail, and say, hey, listen, that'd be awesome. And it stuck with him, and he was like, you know what, if we win it, I'm going to do a party, not back east, where we're from, but we're going to go, in Vegas, and we're going to, make someone's dream come true. You know what I mean? And that's what they did. And they won, and it stuck with my dad. And it was crazy because I do believe the gentleman had no idea that, he was told that he was going to this golf course, and
Yeah.
so the buddies were all in on it. And then the Stanley Cup showed up in a helicopter, and then, brought it down right to his lap. And I tell you one thing, ALS is a oh my God, what a terrible disease. And but I wasn't there, but I can tell you that everyone was saying like the emotions that this guy was, you could see, you know what I mean, that it was like, oh my Lord, right? You know, because it's like it had just made, you know, a lifelong dream of his to be with the cup, and that's what the cup's about, right? That's what those parties are about. And again, they you know, they had a great day, and the whole family, everybody's like a surprise party for him, you know, with the Stanley Cup coming down from helicopter, pretty crazy. But that's what the cup does, and I tell you, guys have been so good with it, and guys will be, you know, through charities and all that kind of stuff, and guys are so intelligent, and it's rare that guys are just saying, "Oh, I'm going on a bender with it," you know. It always ends up a little bit like that at the end of the night, you know, which is normal, but you know, it was kind of awesome the way that a lot of guys, and for me, it's just easy because my dad did it, so it's easy to remember those stories. But there's so many stories like that, and I was telling on the pod that, I don't know if you were there, but it's like, oh yeah, disappointing losses for me, like that 96, 97. So 97 lost to frickin' Detroit. Oh man, you know, we won game one, and like I said, I started dreaming a little bit. What am I gonna do? What am I going to do with my day with the cup? And then I was flying everywhere, and it was like, oh my God! Again, my roots were in Denver now, and I loved it. And I was not married at the time. Like, I'm going to organize this ball hockey tournament for kids, and we're going to pay for, you know, play for the Stanley Cup. The real cup's going to be awesome, and you know, your mind starts racing. And I don't think you're putting the cart ahead of the horse. I think you're just, that's what you've been dreaming of as a kid. And like I said, we knew we were so close because it was either us or Detroit, like Rudo said. And, you know, Detroit ended up winning four straight. No offense to, I don't remember if it was Carolina or Philly that year, but whatever. And we felt that we were going to win. You know, again, easily is a big word, but we were going to get through. And this was, we just had to get through. And then you're looking at this and you're like, I'm 3 games away from maybe planning the party of my life. You know what I mean? Like, and it, you know, besides your wedding and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, most people can't plan those, you know, because most people don't win it, you know, and it
Yeah.
was crazy. It was crushing. And that would have been a great thing for ball hockey and kids around Denver. And of course I would have ended up at the Chop House because that's where we ended up back then. And, you know, and again, it would have been fun. And unfortunately I never got to do it or live it. So I'm a little disappointed.
That was a great story, man. That was one of those that kind of perfectly sums up what I love about sports, which is that at their core, you know, like they're just silly sporting events. It's just a game, but what those games mean to
Yeah.
so many of us, it just represents so much, something so much greater than ourselves. And you know, in the Toyota chat here, they bring up how Landy brought the cup to the children's hospital, which is a very similar, you know, gesture. It's just, it's cool, and
Yep.
I think that shows kind of the dichotomy of hockey players too. Like, yeah, it's the guys celebrating together. We're gonna slam some beers out of this thing. We got the big old, you know, beards, you know, with cigars, hairy chested, real masculine individuals, but also just genuinely good people. And like, there's so many people like that, I'm sure, around the NHL. I've never competed, obviously, at
I
a high
did.
enough level.
I did.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Finish it. No,
Oh,
I
I
was
was
going to
just
tell you
saying,
one more
like,
thing. I was like, I
yeah.
did sleep with it one night. You know,
Oh, did you?
I slept with it. I had no idea. So just so you know, and, you know, I did. Yeah, you know, Patty Waugh was obviously, you know, 96 of the Avalanche. My brother was working for the agency my dad used to work at back then before becoming the GM of the Nordiques and the Avalanche. So Patty had his golf tournament. So I flew back in from LA for Patty's golf tournament, and I was going to stay at my brother's apartment, you know, and sure enough, you know, again, back then, you know, there's no cell phones and all that kind of, you know, it's more like, hey, you know what I mean? Perfect. Just listen, I'll leave the door unlocked. I was coming in all the way from the other side of the country, you know what I mean? And it was like, I think I walked in at 2 in the morning. He's like, hey, you know, Patty, you know, has got his cup, but I think the keeper of the cup is staying in one of my bedrooms, you know what I mean? And, you know, my brother had an extra bedroom. He goes, just sleep on the couch. And I was like, yeah, no problem. Wait, you know, I got there at 2 o'clock and in the morning and had to get up at 7 to go to Patty's golf tournament and then, you know, whatever. So I got up in the morning and then the guy came out and I don't remember, it wasn't Mike or it was another guy that was only there that one year. Anyway, because those, like I said, those guys have the stories. And hey, he's, hey, nice to meet you. I'm Eric, you know. And then the big box is literally a foot away from my head there, and I didn't even put two and two together. And then he's like, "Oh, so you guys have, you know, have met?" And I'm like, So I've been chasing it for a bit, you know what I mean? But whatever, like, and then he opened it, and it's like, oh my God, are you serious? Like, it was in the case right next to my head. I had no idea because, middle of the night, I just went to bed. But yeah, I did sleep with it, and but that's all crazy, those things. And then it makes you stand up a little straight right now. And I'm like, oh my God, did I do something wrong here? I didn't touch it. I didn't do anything, right? I'm good. I'm good. I'm fine. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like that it was right next to my head, but whatever. I can take it. So it was so funny because it's like I said to you. That's why I wanted to say, like, it's amazing what it makes you do. And like you said, you didn't compete at those types of level, but it doesn't matter when you chase something, you want it so bad, and it's the greatest feeling in the world when you get it.
I can only imagine, man. And like, I sent Tiff a photo on Slack. I don't know if we have it or not, but I did touch the Stanley Cup when it was at Breckenridge Brewery a couple of years ago after we were celebrating
Oh
the
yeah,
Avs win with our awesome partners. It was a great time. The crew was out there. We did a live show. Still one of those moments where I'm a little bit awestruck even when I think about it. Like you get up there and
oh,
you're
it
like,
is.
holy shit, this really is like right here in front of me. It's so like intimidating in the best way. It's just you feel the history when you're around it. I got to ask you this though. You said what you wanted to do, which was kind of throw a hockey tournament, which I think would have been really cool, especially to like give kids an opportunity to take photos with it, hold it up and all
Yeah.
that. What would you do in the year 2025 if you got 24 hours with the Stanley Cup?
Oh, I know. Oh my Lord. Like I think it would be. I think you got to break it down like most guys do it. Like I think I'd want to do something early with my kids and my wife. You know what I mean? Like, which is just personal, like a little private moment, because they go through a lot. Families go through a lot and a lot of sacrifices, and the what do you call them, haves better halves, or whatever you want to call that, like, you know what I mean, like you got to go through some sacrifices. And I'm not telling you it's not a great life to be a professional athlete, not what I'm saying, but there's a lot of sacrifice that go through it, and then I think you want to share with those guys. And I think it would be also to teach your kids right there, to bring it somewhere, like, like the Landy style, the children's hospital, something dear to your and I think after that I'd like to bring it to so many places, like, establishments, or, I mean, not necessarily bars, or, of course, that part too, restaurants, bars, that you frequent, and that it
Maybe
would
the
mean a lot to,
DNVR bar.
yeah, the NVR bar. You see what I'm saying? Absolutely. And
Yeah.
well, I would be my party at the end of the night at the DNVR bar. You know what I mean? That's where I would have ended up, and then have some opportunities to have some fun with it. And but you want to touch as many people as you can. You know what I mean? Because so many people don't get to feel it, or like on a fan base. There's only so many people that can get close to it. And I think it's important that at least the ones that have helped you along the way, throughout a season, or it's so important to make sure whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a teacher that was great to your kid, or like I said, on top of the children's hospital type of deal. You know what I mean? So I think it would be important to do that. And I think that you can raise some funds with it too. Like throwing a big party, and having. And the guys are so graceful too, like they're so good with it, because they give their time. And again, winning it today, I wouldn't be a player, so it's like, it's not that big of a deal for people to take a picture with you or me or whatever, you know what I mean? But I think it's important for to make it accessible to all those people. So it would have been awesome. Again, I've never won it. I'm losing 2-0 to my dad, but you never know. You'll never say never.
You still got time.
I still got time. I got more games than him played. Obviously, he's got 0, but I'm gonna talk about games played, and then but we're talking about Stanley Cups. It's 2-0, and yeah, you never know. But of course, that's the biggest regret I have right now, looking back in my lifetime in the NHL. It's like never won it, and but I've been around guys, like when my dad was an agent. Obviously, his teams, and some good friends of mine were on those teams, and like the 0-1 team I just left, not too long before, and it's like it's all your friends, and it's hard. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna tell you that it's easy. I'm not gonna tell you that you're jealous, but you're certainly envious. You know what I mean? Because they're on those trucks in downtown Denver, and it's a craziness, and you're just sitting at home and you're trying not to turn it on, but it's everywhere on the news and everywhere. And when I say not turn it on, because part of you wishes you were there. You know what I mean? And you're not there, and that's why it's like it's such a weird feeling. But it's also, for me, it's your family. So you're also happy. You know what I mean? I'm not going to tell you that Game 7, I was sitting quietly in my seat against Jersey Game 7. No, I was sitting there nervous as crap. You know what I mean? Because you're hoping that your family, your father, your mother, wins it, and all your friends. But then the game ends and it's surreal because you're like, okay, how do I get out of here? And you try to get out of that building in '01. Good luck. I mean, there was no way out. It's like, so you're stuck in there. And then again, same thing. I made a little bit of a deal. I'm like, okay, I'll go in the equipment room for 5 minutes and I can meet my parents and say hi and then get out of there. And my wife and I were trying to get out of there. How do we get a cab to get? We lived in Cherry Creek
Good
at the
luck.
time. So, but it's
Yeah.
because it's, yeah, exactly. It's like, well, good luck. You start, I don't remember what we did. We started walking, I think. We might have walked. I mean, I don't know. Nowadays, a little different with those scooters, and that would have been a perfect night for a scooter. But you know what I mean. So it's crazy what it makes you do. It's crazy the emotion that it gives you. You know what I mean? Like and the missed opportunities too. You know what I mean? Because you have such regrets. You know what I mean? Because it's like, oh, that could have been me. You know what I mean? So yeah, and it's the same thing for fans or for anybody covering the team. It's the same thing. It's just obviously to different levels. But it's all the
I'm a
same.
little bitter. I'm a little bitter that I potentially missed out on an opportunity to cover a Stanley Cup had the Avs gone through Dallas, and that's a whole lot of what if and a whole lot of woulda, coulda, shoulda. They would have had to get through Edmonton too, who obviously that would have been a tough series. I'm sure. I like the Avs' chances of coming out of it, but I think if I had the Stanley Cup for 24 hours, kind of along the lines of what you're saying, I would try and make it too accessible to as many Avs fans as possible. Maybe like, I'm up in NoCo, so start, in Fort Collins or something like that. Probably gonna drink like a beer out of it. Maybe introduce it to the bronze boot. Those are my two favorite trophies in sports: the Stanley Cup and the bronze boot, which CSU gets when they're able to beat Wyoming. But then I'd, try and take it down to Denver and like have something in Larimer Square and, have it be around the people down there. And, maybe I'd take it as far as like the Western Slope. I love it out there. Be cool to sit by a campfire, sipping on some Coors Lights. I'll be a company man sipping on some Coors Lights and got my arm around the cup or something like that. I'd be a little worried about it falling in the campfire if we had a few too many. But something like that. I just would want the people to be around it, and I'd probably want to have some experience with it in nature as well.
I'll
Yeah,
say
for
I'm
sure.
I'm envious
Well, I
of you
remember. I don't
guys.
remember in
What are you saying,
Sorry.
Tiff?
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I would say I'm
for.
very envious of you guys because I was bartending during the cup, so I wasn't quite like in the know and with you guys. So I did not go to that Breckenridge day. So I'm a little jealous of you guys.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to rub salt in the wound, Tiff.
It's
I wouldn't
okay.
have
It's
had you
okay. No,
participate.
no, no, no. It's all love. It's all love. I'm very happy you all got to see it.
You want to put a bow on this one, E,
Yeah.
before we wrap up here?
Yeah. Well, there was in '96. I remember. Was it '96 or '01? Somebody in the front office. I'm talking about. Was it in finance or marketing? Was it Mark Wagner? It doesn't matter. They strapped it on their back and they climbed the 14er with it. You know what I mean? And
That's
that's
impressive.
pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, just to answer your question from the start of the show, that's pretty impressive. So I was it Mark? It might have been Mark. I don't remember. Again, I apologize if it was Mark or Paul or anyway, somebody from the office, and that's pretty crazy to me. You know what I mean? That's pretty cool, and those are lifetime memories, and it's just yeah. I mean, everybody dreams of what they would do with it. You know what I mean? And if they don't, they're lying because it's everybody dreams of it. You know what I mean? That's what I would do. That's what I would do. You know what I mean? And there's so many things that, and then but you only have 24 hours. Right, and it's like it's crazy, because it goes
Got to make it
quick, you know
count.
what I mean, and
Yeah.
you got to sleep in there. That's why there's not a lot of sleep when those things come, and there's not a lot of sleep. So
Hopefully more fans around these parts will get an opportunity to experience the cup, and hopefully we'll get a Tiff her moment at Old Breck Brew in a couple years. Hopefully next year. Why look long term? We'll say hopefully they get it done next year. We've only got a couple of minutes left, but I do like this last segment you have here. So I wanted to kind of pick your brain on some targets you threw out on some guys who could potentially be off-season acquisitions for the Avalanche. You mentioned Sam Reinhart, who's obviously going to be in the focus in this series. You mentioned William Nylander, from Toronto, and Werenski, the defenseman from Columbus. All those guys had nice offensive seasons.
Yeah.
Who stands out to you in that group, and who would be the best fit?
And my yeah, and that's why I was going to have fun. We can do that another time. It was more to have fun with it. Those guys aren't going to get moved. It was more like, if you were going to, no cost today for the Avalanche, no cost, because we all know they don't really have assets, but no cost. And those players were on the block, which they're not. Who would be the best fit? Would you add a Werenski that had a Norris caliber trophy season? Would you add a Reinhart that could score 50, but he's also usually, one of the top guys for the Selke? Or would you add a guy with a little bit of flair in Nylander that is would that mesh well with McKinnon? Or, if you had the chance to pick one of those three, you know what I mean? And again, they're available. You're not giving up anything, and doesn't exist a salary cap. But you have the players that you have today.
Video game rosters, then. We're shutting off the rules. We're building whoever we want.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, who do you take? Because, it's the same conversation as sometimes people say, you have one player to take, you're starting a franchise. Who is it? I always say Kel McCarr, and over anyone. That's just for me. Right. That's for me. He's the best player in the world. He's 30 minutes a night. He controls the game. And that's who I would take. You know what I mean? A lot of people would say McDavid, McKinnon, but that's why we can have fun another day with that. It was more like, if those guys were available because they told their coaches to, take a hike, and you know what I mean? And there was no salary cap. And then the roster that you have at the Avalanche today, you know what I mean? Like, would that benefit adding a center? Would that benefit having a D? Or would you add a winger of those caliber players, which that's why I picked three guys that are,
Man, Nylander with Nichushkin and Landy would be a pretty fun video game type fantasy.
Oh my God, I would take him. That's my answer. This guy fascinates me. I played against his dad. I don't know him, but it's just funny. It's just, you hear Berube talk about him, and it's just funny to see him go. I think he's got more bite than the other two on that team, or the other three.
I do too.
Talk about that for. But yeah, at the end, did he produce this year? No. Does he usually produce in crunch? Yes. Maybe it's an off year in that sense, but yeah, that'd be interesting to see if you can play what if, what if that those guys were available and you could land them without dropping anything, $1 a pick or anything, or a player. Who would you add, and that's, those are fun things to think about sometimes, especially in the offseason, because every coach does that too. So don't kid yourself. They all have their napkins at dinner every night, and they have their pen and napkins, and they're like, oh, who could we add to our lineup? And that's what coaches do.
I'm glad this was more of a hypothetical, because when I was prepping for this, I was like, I don't really know how you would make any of these work, but man, they would be fun.
Can't.
Yeah.
You can't make it work, but that's why it's fun to dream. Oh man.
This has been a blast. I appreciate everybody that's rocking with us in the Toyota chat. It's been really lively. I am going to be out of town a little bit here over the next couple weeks or so, doing some family stuff, trying to take a little bit of time to myself in the off season than going crazy. And football is obviously right around the corner, but I'll still be hopping on the podcast throughout the off season. I appreciate Eric and AJ and Rudo and everybody for including me. I appreciate the kind words from the Avs faithful, who have been very welcoming and very supportive of my addition to the crew. It means a lot to me. Definitely had some imposter syndrome, but it's been a blast, and I think we're having a lot of fun here. Lots of great content coming your way for Eric, for Tiff, for everybody over at DNVR Avalanche. Much love, y'all. Hope you have a great week. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.